when we left off yesterday, what's the kid's name that was at the,
Byron.
no, who went, Kenneth went to the whirlpool?
Yeah, he was about to jump in.
Okay.
The whirlpool. Then you stopped it, so he couldn't get it.
Yes, I stopped it so you didn't know what was going to happen. So Kenneth actually made the bad choice this time, and Byron made the good choice to not go to the whirlpool. And Kenneth is at the whirlpool at Coyler's Landing, and we're going to see if he's going to get in or not. There's one good thing about getting in trouble. It seems like you do it in steps. It seems like you don't just end up in trouble, but that you kind of ease yourself into it. It also seems like the worse the trouble is that you get into, the more steps it takes to get there. Sort of like you're getting a bunch of little warnings on the way. Sort of like you really wanted to, if you really wanted to, you could turn around. The first warning I should have listened to was when Daddy Cool and Joey followed the arrow to the left and I went to the right. The second warning came when I decided to wade in the water and the knots wouldn't come out of my tennis shoelaces, and I had to pull and tug the shoes off with the laces still tied. After that, it's kind of hard to count how many warnings I got, because with the trouble I ended up in, I must have had a zillion of them. Step by step, I kept easing into trouble, until finally I was standing in the lake with the water up to my knees. I'd gone out into the water because there was a bunch of little stupid-looking, slow-moving fish right near the shore, and I thought I might be able to catch some of them and make them pets. I wasn't afraid because I figured if there was a real Woolpoo, and he was in the area, these little fish wouldn't be hanging around. Alabama fish were a lot friendlier and a lot trickier than Michigan ones. I bent over and stuck my hand in the water and tried to grab a couple, but they kept slipping away like they were covered with soap. They were right there and I couldn't grab them. They didn't even act like they were afraid of me. They just kept swimming around my legs, even bumping their faces into me, like they were trying to kiss me. It seemed like they wanted me to catch them and take them back to Flint. After missing about 100 times, I stood up and saw the reason the fish wouldn't go out into deeper water. There was a big green turtle, about the size of a football, cruising back and forth in the deep water, and he looked just as slow and stupid as the fish did. Wow, who'd want to have a fish for a pet when you could have a turtle? I took a few more steps out, and the cool blue water came all the way up to my arms. Getting cool all of a sudden like this made me bug my eyes and suck in my breath. I made a quick grab at the stupid turtle and zoom, he flapped his arms once and disappeared into the deep water. That quick grab was my last step. Boom! All of a sudden, I was in big, big trouble. The rocky ground under my feet started sliding away from the shore. I didn't get nervous because I knew I could flap my arms like the turtle and get back to the dirt. I looked up and saw the shore was still real close. I flapped my arms, and nothing happened. I stayed in the same spot. Then the rocks under my feet were gone, and I was kicking in the water. With the tips of my toes, I could still brush some of the rocks, but they were all sliding and sliding away from the shore. I pushed away to try to swim back, and my head bobbed under the water. All the sound and light from Alabama disappeared because my eyes automatically shut, and it seemed like my ears were stuffed with cotton. I got a mouthful of water, but my head came right back up. I laughed because I was spitting and patooing a mile a minute when my head popped out of the water. But the laughing stopped real quick when I tried swimming again, and my head went back under. That's when I got really scared. I'd seen enough cartoons to know that when your head goes down 3 times, it doesn't ever come up again. I knew if I went down one more time, I was as dead as a donut. What is that, as dead as a donut? It could be an idiom. It could also be a simile because he's comparing how dead he is to a donut, which is kind of an odd comparison, but my eyes looked at the shore where my shoes were sitting safe on some rocks. Oh man, I said to myself, I wish I had a magic lamp so I could have the genie make me be where those shoes are and they could be where I am. That was the last thing I thought about before I found out that Grandma Sands and Byron and Joe Coyer weren't lying at all. That was the last thing I thought about before I find out that the Wool Pooh was real and big and mean and horrible, and that he didn't care at all about dragging kids out into the water. I'd never ever been this scared in my life. I hollered out, "Mama!" My arms were punching the water like it was a person, and my legs were going a mile a minute to try to get back to the shore. But now even my toes couldn't find anything to touch. "Okay, Kenny," I said to myself. "You know you're going to be all right. Just get real calm and swim back to the land. When you count to 3, just go back to your shoes." I stopped kicking for a second and said, 1, 2, 3. Then I gave my arms one more flap to go back to the shore, and down I went again. My head went under for the 3rd time, and I knew I'd never come back up again. Going down 3 times like this is just like waking up and finding yourself tied to a tree with someone saying, "Ready, aim, fire." That's when he came swimming real slow out to the deep, and even though my head was underneath the dark water, I could see him coming right at me. He didn't look like he was related to Winnie the Pooh at all. He was big and gray with hard, square-looking fingers. Where he should have had a face, there was nothing but dark gray. Where he should have had eyes, there was nothing but a darker, colder-looking color. He grabbed my legs and started pulling me down. I kicked and scratched at him, but he was just too strong. It seemed like he didn't even feel my punches. My head felt like it was going to explode. I didn't think I could hold my breath for another second. I was feeling real scared and dizzy from holding my breath this long. Then suddenly I could see that there was something else in the water, and the Wool Pooh was pulling me right toward them. It was a little girl, and she had on a real pretty blue dress and the big yellow wings and something tied around her head. When the Wool Pooh pulled me closer, I could see that it was a little angel. And wait a minute, it was Joette, looking just like an angel. Miss Davidson had given her. Who's Joette?
Joette's sister. Sister.
Is the little sister alive?
Yes.
Okay.
It was the doll that their neighbor gave.
Yeah, someone just thought she was like an angel because she was so nice.
Okay. Joey had wings and a halo. Her face was real calm too, but she was pointing straight up like there was something important I should look at. This angel that looked like Joey was telling me I had to swim up one more time. This really scared me. I knew it wasn't a good sign when you started seeing angels, so I kicked and flapped my arms and started going toward the sky. My head came up and I spit out a belly full of water and took a couple of good deep breaths. "Mama! Mama! Help me!" But the Wool Pooh wasn't through with me. I felt his hard hand go around my ankle, and I went down for the 4th time. I got pulled a little further and saw someone else in the water with me, kicking up a ton of dirt and scratching at the water like they were crazy. Byron.
It was Byron.
Man, the Wool Pooh is going to let me see all my family one more time before I go. Byron tried grabbing at me, but the Wool Pooh was pulling me away too fast. I saw By's legs swim back toward the sky. Pull, whoosh, stop. Pull, whoosh, stop. Up ahead, someone else was in the water. It has to be Mama and Dad. Goodbye, Mama. Goodbye, Dad. No, it's By again. Still looking all crazy. Still scratching the water. Byron and the Wool Pooh started duking it out. By must have hit it 100 times in that place where its face should have been. Finally, the Wool Pooh couldn't take any more, and I felt those hard, cold fingers come off my ankle. The Wool Pooh swam back into the deep water. The last thing I noticed about him was that he had big, square toes. Byron grabbed me and put his arm around my neck, and it felt like he was trying to choke me. As soon as he got me on the shore and turned me upside down, I felt like I was going to die. I started throwing up a ton of water and food. If there was a forest fire somewhere, all they would have to do is hold me over it and I would have put it out. I threw up and coughed and choked and vomited about 1,000,000 times. And all this just because I breathed in some air. Vi held my ankles and kept banging me up and down and screaming at me. When the sound from the water in my ears and the sound of me vomiting my guts out and the whoosh sound from the wool poo finally left me, I could hear Byron shouting, "Oh man, oh man, oh man," over and over. Finally I yelled, "Stop! Put me down!" Byron dropped me on the ground, right on top of all the water and junk that I'd thrown up. I knew he was going to make a stupid joke about me landing face first in all that mess, but he didn't. He just wrapped his arms around my shoulders real tight and put his mouth right on top of my head. Byron was shaking like he was getting electrocuted and crying like a baby and kissing the top of my head over and over. This was real disgusting. He just kept saying, "Kenny, Kenny, Kenny," a bunch of times with his mouth wide open on top of my head. I could feel his teeth grinding into my skull, but Vi didn't care. I said, "Oh, man," and tried to make him quit, but all I could do was sit there too tired to do anything but let Daddy Cool nibble on the top of my head while he cried like a kindergarten baby. So, why is Byron really crying and kissing Kenny on top of his head? He thought his brother was going to die. Even if they didn't get along, you still don't want to see somebody you live with and care about pass away or get hurt. Yes, Miles?
What really pulled the brother?
It's a whirlpool. It's just like currents in the water.
I know what a whirlpool is. I was just wondering. It's just because the story.
So, they're making it seem like a monster or something, but nothing is really under there pulling him under. It's just a whirlpool that spins around and drags you under in water.
I think it's an alligator.